I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, and I'm located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Monroe, Washington. And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey folks, thanks for listening to Wheel Talk. We would love some more interaction with you all throughout this future episodes, and we would love to hear some listener questions. They may get on the episode.
Yeah, just submit them to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com, or you can submit them on our Instagram at wheeltalkpodcast. Thanks.
Got it.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm doing well.
Good. What are we talking? How was your day?
So, my day, I feel like every time we talk on a Monday, it feels like the same shit every time. Worked all day. I felt like it was productive. And also, I guess the thing that's new is I'm getting work done in my basement in the studio.
Oh, yeah.
So, this is the second day of, I have two guys working on the basement for building a wall in the studio to split up the studio portion and the garage / storage / all the other kind of basement stuff. So they got the framing done Friday, and then today they got the rest of the framing done. They've got drywall on one side completely, insulation put up between the wall, and then they got about half of the other side of the wall drywalled. So it's getting pretty close.
That's exciting.
I think tomorrow they should be done. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe a little bit on Wednesday too, but it's getting close.
Nice.
So that was the highlight of my day, I would say, besides teaching at Baker Hunt.
That's good. I think it's funny that me and you both kind of went through like this weird fix up the studio situation all at the same time.
Well, I think the reason that's happening is because we do so many house projects, and a lot of them are driven by like things that Rachel wants to get done.
Yeah.
And this was like something that immediately like impacted me and my work, because I'm in the basement so much that area just turned into a big pile of crap.
Yeah.
And it wasn't organized in any fashion, so I was like, you know what? I want to spend the money and like build this thing so that it is more functional for the studio.
Oh, here's a question. Is your pottery money paying for it, or are you paying for it?
I was paying for it, not out of the pottery money.
That's okay.
I don't know. Maybe I should split it. But I mean, it's really a home improvement, so
no,
that's kind of the way I split it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a space improvement too, so.
Yeah. I mean, I could if I wanted to.
It could be an
like
expense.
half and half.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
For sure. Cool.
How was your day?
My day was good. I went and got clay today, and I didn't hit any traffic, which was nice. And I also have been building up a little tiny studio within my studio, so that's been really fun, and I've got a little nook now. So now I'm like in production mode a little bit. We got some clay pugged today, Seb pugged clay, and then got the rest of an order done, and I feel good about it. Oh, also,
nice.
Also, I started using Mako Fundamental Underglazes. I got them today at the store.
Never heard of that.
Never heard of those ones. So I'm trying them out to see, and you know, like when I test something, I like buy like 20 of them and test it. So if they don't work, we'll be up a creek. But I think they will. You
bought 20 pints to test it?
No, 20 of the little ones, like the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't need very much, but I like all the colors, and so. But if they work, then I'm gonna go back and buy all the other colors. So, yeah.
Damn, they have more than 20 colors.
Yeah, I got 16, and it's just it's like Amico, where they have all the different colors of underglazes, but it's Mako. And since I have a studio and I get the I have pricing for the studio, I chose Mako. But they're
right.
Very affordable, and I was very excited about that. So we'll report back to see how they work.
Sweet.
Yes. Also, Mako, you should sponsor us. Okay, and that's it. So what are we talking about today, Ryan?
All right, so I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, but essentially we're talking about, as an artist, there's a lot of comparing that happens. There's a lot of self-doubt. There's some insecurities and, figuring out and re-questioning all the time, like, am I making good enough stuff? Or, these people are making such awesome things,
Right.
how do I make stuff to keep up? Or, they're able to pick up on this technique or this skill or whatever, and I feel like I'm just lagging. So that's kind of the overarching thing is insecurities, I would say.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah. So I just listed a bunch of stuff that was like related to that. So we'll see how this goes and how it like changes course. And
Is it in our notes?
I don't.
Or did you have the list?
It's in the note. I kind of sent it to you.
Okay.
But I know we talked a little bit about this when we were at ClickCon West. I know Becca had some comments when we were, I guess we can just start there. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you and I, if you're like a production potter, you make a lot of the same things, and then you see people that spend an hour per piece or multi-hours per piece, and you're like, man, I just make basic stuff. Like,
I'm a basic bitch.
they're just so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And I think that what it also stems from is like people come up to me all the time, especially when I'm showing or selling around other potters, or it's specifically potters that come up to me and say, "You are pricing your pieces way too low for what they are." And when I sell my stuff to the general public, they're like, "These are really expensive. Oh my God, $25 for a mug." And so, I see like both sides of the spectrum, and I think that, I think that when I go to a show like that, I do have a little self doubt because I'm like, oh, my mugs are like $20, and his mugs are like $60, and they're really cool, and I'm not actually comparing my worth of product because I think that my product is done well, and I have a lot of standards that I meet, but I definitely think that some people may look at it and be like, "Oh, her mugs are $20. Like they must not be as good." It's just that I can make a mug faster, and so,
Yeah.
and that's the path that I've chosen, and so it does come with a lot of self doubt.
So do you have those conversations with the potters of like, you have to explain yourself, or is it because your whole explanation of what you've told me has a lot to do with your town and being affordable for the people around you so that you could support them so they could support you and
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah.
So do you have that conversation?
Sometimes, yeah, I do. I think my general like when they're like, your mugs are way too expensive or way too cheap, and I'm like, well, from the beginning, and this is true, from the beginning, I said, if I can't sell to my neighbor, I don't really want to sell my mugs, and because it's really important for my community to be involved in that, um, and when I say that, I think that people tend to be like, oh, that makes sense, and I know,
Yeah, it's not from inexperience or like you don't know how to price.
right.
There's reasoning behind it.
Yeah, and it may not be financially the most financially smartest decision to sell a mug for $23, but it's the decision that I've chosen, and even the production people that are like my closest production friends kind of say the same thing, and I don't know, maybe someday I'll change, but right now, I don't know, it's just it makes me happy when somebody comes into the store off the street and they can buy a mug and they don't have to think twice about it. And so, yeah, that's
How do you know when that number can go up though? Because you've kept it. Have you kept it that number for a while?
No, I have been raising my prices incrementally, just generally, and then this year I started, after having like conversations with friends about like wholesale and stuff, I started putting my wholesale prices at specific prices and not actually saying, hey, you need to sell these for this amount. So, yeah, so my mugs started at like $18, I think, and they've gone to $23. So that's like a $5 hike in probably 3 to 4 years. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
I think that's about where I started too.
Yeah.
Because I think when I was first figuring out pricing, I mean, it's a shot in the dark. You don't really know.
No.
Like, the figuring that out in your market and all that, like, I think when I was talking to someone, they're like, you should not sell it for any less than $18.
That may have been
So I
me.
think I started there. It may have been you, or yeah, it might have been another discussion or something about it. And yeah, that's kind of where I started as well, and kind of went up from there. A lot of it's been supply and demand, so
Yeah.
and you just, I mean, looking at your pieces year over year, you see the progress, and you get more confident
Yeah.
in what you can make and how efficient you can be at it, and you get better at selling it, so
Totally.
it has room to go up.
Yeah, and I think it's taken a lot of years for me to be like comfortable too. I think Tim C on Clay Buddies had a really really good live video that he talked about pricing, and I like his position on it. He's kind of like, you have to price for your market, but you also have to price for your value, and but also I think to add to that is that you have to price and be confident about it. If you're not confident about your price, like I'm confident, I have. It doesn't sound like I'm confident right now, but I am. I have reasons why I've done things the way I've done them, and I also have the sales to back that up. And and if somebody came at me and was like, well, why do you sell at this? I say the exact same thing every time. It's not like I'm searching for reasons of why I do what I do. Like, I've already figured that out. So I'm, it's pretty confident in that regard.
Does it, as you're figuring out maybe new forms or figuring out how to sell something, like, do you get discouraged when people don't buy a certain thing? And does that hurt your, like, am I just not making something that people want? Or is there some doubt? Because, I mean, there's always you don't really know if something's going to sell if it's a new thing. So it's like, how do you balance I'm confident in this thing because I think there's a need for it.
Right.
Or, do you ask for feedback whenever people pick it up so that you can figure out what they're thinking, as it's a new thing that you haven't really got much data behind, like that it sells this much and these markets are good for it. It's kind of hard to...
I think that myself, and I am a very, very observant person. And so when I'm sitting there at my booth for 8 hours in the day and I see people pick things up and set things down or look at things, and I'm like, I'm very aware of what they're looking at. So I don't necessarily ask people why they don't choose things, but I definitely have a lot of misses for sure. Like last year I made toothbrush holders. Those were a total flop. And I made bottles. Those were, people liked the way they looked, but they didn't want to spend the money for them because I priced those a little higher. Yeah. And,
I felt the same way about bottles when I was making some. They're just not, they don't have as multi-purpose. They're just pretty much decorative. It's not an easy sell like some other things that you could be like, well, you could use this for a spoon rest or a tea bag holder or this or that.
Yeah.
If you can list a bunch of things, they're easily going to get their value out of it.
Totally.
Versus a bottle that's going to look nice on a shelf.
Right. And then, once I started making planters, I think that was like a hit, that at the very beginning, I don't think that I realized how much of a demand there are for planters. And then when I found out, I was like, oh. And people want big planters. It's not like they want like tiny ones. They do kind of want tiny ones, but big planters are a thing. I think that, I think that it's a constant learning curve and struggle to find all the things that you like. Oh no, I just yawned. I hope you don't yawn.
And you can't take stuff too personal when people don't buy something, or if they're picking something up and you see them look at the price and they like sit it back down, or they're
Right.
like, or something like that. It's just, it could be educating them. Maybe you need to educate them better on like why it costs that.
Yeah.
Or if, or maybe you are pricing it too much, or, you're spending too much time on something that maybe doesn't need to be as detailed, so that you can drop the price a little bit on it.
Yeah. I think that also that's why I have kind of a disconnect to my products, which, if you haven't been listening, I refer to my stuff as crap all the time, and I'm not, like, it's not Christmas morning for me when I open up my kiln. It's nothing like that. This is my job, and this is what I do, and I like it, and that's where we are. But I think that I have always been the person, especially when I was younger, where I loved certain things and nobody else liked the things that I liked. And so when I go into a show or bring new products in and I love those products, I can pretty much count that nobody will like what I like. Like, it's a big surprise when I started making all of those geometric cups and stuff, and I priced the geometric cups pretty high. Those ones I priced at like $60 to $70. And when people actually like those, I was like, what? Like, what's happening?
Right.
If I like a product or a color, I can pretty much guarantee that one's not going to sell. It's always like that. I feel like it's always like that. So I've just gotten kind of used to it, and so it doesn't bother me at all, I guess. But I think that for some people it might bother them. Because, especially when people put their heart and soul into something and then it doesn't sell, and they're like, why didn't it sell? And that's just kind of the way that life works.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Everyone has different tastes. So,
yeah,
especially as like an art person, you're making the thing and you're like, this one is better than this one because the form and the proportions and this glaze and blah, 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 blah. But the buyer's market, the people who are going to buy it, don't know about clay. They don't know all those details. They're not looking at it the same way you are. And you see this thing every day. So
totally,
they could just think a blue mug is
the
bee's knees or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they could think it's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And then you think like, oh, this one that has this amazing glaze and this difference that,
I'll tell you what, if you want a confidence booster, you put out your seconds bin. That's what I would do at a show. If you want a confidence booster, you put out a bin that has all of your seconds pieces in it that you can sell, not the ones that are shit, but the ones that like have a little crack in it that is glazed in, it's totally usable, like you would use it at home, but it's just not perfect. And you mark them however you want to mark them, whatever. And you watch, people will flock to that shelf. And they're like, I love this one. It's got character. It doesn't matter how crappy it is or how weird it looks. They love it. And I think that that's like the biggest thing for me is when I started seeing that happen, because I do have a little second shelf on the bottom. And I'm like, people just like what they like. And that's what they like. They like a good price. They like a weird pot. They like a super weird glazing. If it's got, and you're like, oh, well, that one has messed up glaze. They pick it up and they're like, I don't see it. I love it. I'm going to buy this.
It's like you're finding a diamond in a rough.
Yeah.
Like if I go into a store, I'm going straight for that clearance rack because I want to find a diamond in a rough that I can find at a good price.
Totally. I think it's totally underrated, the second spin. But you do
I've never put a second spin out, but
you do have
I can see the appeal.
Yeah, you do have to like mark it clearly though. I mark mine as perfectly imperfect. I also have a $5 bin in my shop that's like the stuff that's been sitting forever, and it's like a cardboard box and it says $5, and people rummage through that all the time. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah. What next?
What about as you've kept progressing and making, like, I would. So a note that I had on here is being your best critic and cheerleader. So,
Mm,
like, do you have pieces where you're just like, I'm not throwing well today. I'm just gonna squash this piece, or this does not look like the others, or
yes.
whatever, and you just squash it and you keep going. You're like, this is gonna be better for the quality.
Yeah.
Just squash this, or something's not right, or
Do you do that? Do you mess up pieces that are?
I've I was throwing some bowls in the last few weeks that I've squashed probably 4 of them or something while I was throwing them
Yeah.
because they weren't consistent with the others.
Yeah. I think the best advice that I've gotten as far as throwing those is to um, be critical of your pieces, but have every piece be intentional. Like, and I don't necessarily give this to my students because they're not in it for a professional situation. They're like here to learn and to have fun, and like I kind of approach it differently. So, like, if I was teaching Seb, who's working with me in the studio, and they like made something that was subpar and they knew it, I'd be like, okay, let's think about this. Like, do you really want this to come out? Like, are you just doing this to just do it? Is it gonna sit on a shelf somewhere? I have so many pieces that people are like, no, you should save them. I'm like, what's the point? I'm not gonna glaze it. It's gonna sit on my shelf forever. I'm not gonna be confident in glazing that later. So I'm not gonna use, like, it's going in the trash. And but if I'm teaching a class and they're there to learn and they're there to, like, have a fun night, then I'm like, yeah, save it, whatever, who cares? Like, this isn't something that's not going to be glazed. But if somebody approaches it as I want some substance, like, not substance, but I want to, like, sell this piece or sell pieces, then I'll be like, okay, that one's kind of shoddy. Maybe we should think about this. Like, are you going to glaze it? Is somebody going to like it? If it's got a crack in it, toss it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I see posts on Clay Buddies where everybody's like, this has a crack in it and I worked so hard. And I think every single production potter is like, toss it in the trash. And every single other potter is like, I think you can save it. Like, it'll be
Make
fine.
it a planter.
Make it a planter. And it's like, no. If you are working that hard on something, toss it and figure it out. Failure is the path to success. That's my key. I think that's important.
And a lot of that kind of back and forth is not worth the time and effort. Like, you could just make another one.
Yeah.
And
exactly. And you'll probably
learn something from it and figure out why something happened, or try to figure out if there was something that you did wrong along the process, or like, let's say you're throwing a pot, you come back the next week and you didn't wrap it tight enough, so it dried out too much. Like, you can't just rehydrate and think something's going to work out, and then it ends up cracking. You're like, why did that happen? It's like, I can't follow what you did with every single step of this piece, so it's hard to just tell them as a teacher, like, this is what happened exactly.
Yeah.
It's more like, okay, let's just keep making more and, like, get better over time.
Yeah. I think, and like I said earlier, I think that there's 2 different types of scenarios. One where you're learning and, like, you have, like, my students have 4 weeks or 5 weeks and they have 25 pounds of clay. And if you're in that scenario, keep everything. Like, use it to glaze. Like, figure out the glazing. Like, use that as a glaze sample, test. But if you already have been in this for a year or 2 or even 6 months, and you make something and it's like, I don't know if I like this, like, just trash it. It's fine. Make another one.
Right.
So,
What about being your best cheerleader? What do you do to kind of, do you reflect when you get home from a show and, maybe it wasn't the best one, but you're like, this went well, or, you kind of build yourself up for certain things, or, like, at the end of a day or the end of a week when you have a productive week, treat yourself to something, or...
Yeah.
What do you
I
do?
don't think I do anything because I don't know if I have a problem with that. Do you do anything?
One thing I would say is for the shows I kind of stopped doing it as much this past year because I just lost track. But I was keeping every show card, like every postcard from every show that I did,
Yeah.
up until probably middle of 2019. So like I have a wall above my wedging table that just has a bunch of postcards of shows, which is really cool to say like, hey, this is where I've been. These are
Yeah.
all the work and the shows that I put in, and like that gives me confidence that hey, I know what I'm doing with certain things, and like
Yeah.
I remember that show, and like I didn't sell as well at that one, and maybe it was the weather, or maybe I didn't have the right things out, or
You should write what
that
you
was my
make
very
right on the
first show.
itty bitty corner.
How much I sold or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
so that you can be like, yeah, I sold like $1,500 that day. Like, you know?
Yeah. Or
Yeah, I don't think that I do that, but I guess, ooh,
do you keep track of the number of pots you make? I mean, that's a simple thing
no.
that you're cheering yourself on that you're making so much throughout the year or every month or whatever.
No, I don't. It's too many. Well, and also I tend to get more discouraged in that regard because set my goals really high. So if I don't keep track, then I don't have to know that I didn't reach that goal. But no, I do like to take pictures of the pots all lined up. That's kind of like
Ooh, that is satisfying.
that's like so
kind of like a
satisfying.
handle tunnel or just a board of pots.
Yeah, like, and especially with the new studio layout, like, I have slat walls, and so all the boards go up, and so I can see all the pots like lined up perfectly. That's like something that's super satisfying to me. So that's motivating, and I think that, well, flash sales are really motivating to me. Like if I'm ever kind of in the dumps, sometimes I'll do a flash sale. And for people that don't know what Becca's version of a flash sale is, I sell on Facebook and I say, hey, we're doing bowls today. You're getting wholesale pricing. And so like this last weekend, I didn't have enough money for rent. And that's just because January has been freaking nuts. I had to pay $1,400 in taxes, and that was sales taxes, and then I had to pay like all these other things and different bills and stuff. And I like had like $600 on Friday, and I need $1,800 to pay my landlord today, right? And so I was like, okay, we're gonna do a flash sale, and we did. This is real. I feel sometimes like I'm the J.C. Penney's of Potters.
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds
well,
funny.
because J.C. Penney's built their business on doing sales, right? So like they would have regular prices, but every single week they'd have a sale. And that's how they built their business, because they did studies and show that people respond better to sales, even if it's actually priced correctly. Like if they bump up the prices to like $45 and then always do a sale for $20, but the actual retail price was supposed to be $20, then people would still buy the sale price. It doesn't matter. Like it's kind of like Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime's not always cheapest, but people think it is because it's Amazon Prime, and so. Right. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy this $25 pack of pencils when you can find it for $12.95 on a different site. You just have to get it
or like
in 2
in
weeks.
store.
Or in a store. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. So anyway, so I sold, this week it was cereal bowls, and they were $10. My normal price.
That's a good price.
That's a freaking good price. My normal price for cereal bowls is $16. So in order to make a flash sale worth it for me, I have to sell about 100 pieces, because that's a good wholesale order, you know. So I sold, I think, like 116, 120. But you know, by the end of the weekend, I had $1,700 go into my account, and that is satisfying. To have a drop that's that big and know that you did that in a day is really nice, you know. Like I can't go to a show and make $1,700, but at my shop, if I do a quick sale on Facebook, I can, and that is worth it to me, you know.
That's your when you need money, find it.
Yeah, when you need money, find it, guys.
I would say that might funnel into the next part of this where it's like, you know, what are you strong at and what are you weak at? And being self-aware to know like what you can make happen. And like for you, throwing production and making a ton of things to fill an order, like a wholesale order or like a flash sale order.
Yeah.
Like that's your strong suit, and that's kind of your sweet spot of like what you enjoy doing. So you're willing to sacrifice some of the money
Oh yeah.
of like selling at a show. You'd much rather do that. The
I
40%
I love it.
that you're losing is like worth it for you.
Right now, really mostly the only money that I make in pottery is either flash sales or Leavenworth, and doing my show in Leavenworth every weekend. And it's the same thing. It's like a total grind, you know. On flash sales, it's like, hey, you got to make 120 bowls, and you got to make it they have to be done in the next 3 weeks, and which is easy enough to do if that was the only thing I had to do. But it's like, okay, now you got to get to work, and if you don't do it fast, then you don't make your money's worth, you know. And so yeah,
Right.
that is definitely my strong suit. And like for other people like you, your strong suit is selling at a show. So like that's
Yeah, being able to talk about the way things can be used and doing the back and forth and, you know, asking for feedback about the new carved things like, hey, I'm trying to get feedback about, what you like about this or what colors you like the most so I can figure out what to improve on or what people get a pulse on what people actually like besides just shooting blindly and hoping people buy this thing. And if they don't buy it, I have no idea why they don't buy it. Like, I'd rather have the back and forth with people.
Yeah, totally. I forgot what the question was. What is your strong point and what's your weak point?
Yeah, just figuring out, being self-aware to know what you're strong at, what you're weak at.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely
optimizing and
especially watching both of our businesses grow over the past, like, I don't know how many years, 4 years, 5 years. It's been interesting to watch both of us kind of like find where the strong point is and take that by the horns and move it along. You know, like, I'm fully aware that me going to a weird show that's not in my schedule is not going to do me well because I don't deal well with change. I need to like sit in a situation for a while and see what needs to be fixed and then fix that within that situation and evolve that. Like, I cannot tell you how many times the people up in Leavenworth has watched me rebuild shelves in my booth to make it better. And that's only because I can stay stagnant there and fix it and make it better as I go. But if I was going to all these different shows, I wouldn't know what to fix because I don't have that consistency. You know, that's how I thrive.
Right.
And you have figured that all out, and so you can go to shows, and then you're working on how to sell to people better, and over the years,
Right.
you know. So yeah, I definitely think that we're figuring it out. We haven't figured it out, but we're figuring it out.
And like in my ability to have like a giveaway or something wouldn't work for your clientele because it's a lot of tourist people. You can't remarket to people that are just coming as tourists through a town.
Right.
To say come back and see me because they're only there for like a vacation or some reason that's like they don't live there. So
Right.
Those tactics would not work for upping your return visitor like I might. So some of the show stuff, yeah, I've got to kind of I got to kind of work on the fly sometimes with just even the setup. Like you get there and you're like, okay, who's next to me? And then, like, do they have a banner on this side that's going to cover up this visual from the boot, from, customers walking? Or, like, which direction are customers most likely going to be walking from?
Right.
And, like, is the weather going to be bad? Do I need to make sure that I have enough... I don't push the back table back far enough to where I'm going to be sitting in the wet outside of the 10x10? Or, where's the sun going to be coming into the booth and stuff like that? So...
Yeah.
I've got to do that on the fly.
Yeah.
And, like, hopefully figure it out.
Yeah, and where I sell, we all know each other. There's like 20 of us, and we all vend. And we all have 20 by 10 booths, 10 by 20s. And the guys that, not the guys that make the most money, but the guys that are like older and more strategic, I suppose, are always like, so we do a lottery system, and every Sunday we pick for the next week. And what happens is there's like chips, and you pick a number, and who gets one gets to pick first, and two, three, four, so on and so forth. And the young people never, we never pick according to what the best spot is. We always pick according to who's next to us. We're like, who do I want to hang out with next week? But like the ones that are more strategic are like, I want the one by the tree, there's shade, or I want the one by the bathroom, and which is a good way to go about it, the smart way to go about it. And we're just like, nah, I want to be next to Allie.
Huh.
But
maybe you should do like 2 shows like that next year and see what happens.
What?
Like if do you ever get like the top 3 choices or something, and like you can be more strategic?
Oh yeah,
before other people have picked.
Yeah, I am usually pretty strategic. I go half. If I get like a lower end number, then I'll choose somebody. I'll choose the middle near somebody. But if I get a higher end number, I've got 2 places that I always choose. But I can't be next to the metalworking guy, because the metalworking guy's stuff is shiny, and people just walk through my booth and look at his stuff. And so, like, and then you have
things you learn, right?
Yeah, you have to make a wall against the photographers. You have to figure out how to block off the photographers, because their stuff is really big, so people walk through your booth, or they walk into your booth and look at the other people's stuff. That's always fun.
Right.
If you are going to a show, do not do that. That is rude. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's, you have to be strategic about it a little bit. But at the same time, you're there for a whole weekend, so why not have fun?
What
I
about
like
some
being
like
next
weaknesses?
to everybody, though, also.
Do you have certain weaknesses that you avoid because you know that it's not worth your time, or like you don't have to do it even though other people do it and they succeed at doing that?
Like selling online?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, I sell on Facebook, but that's not really an online sale. I'm not taking pictures. I take one picture of a pot that I found that I made probably 3 years ago, and I'm like, this'll work. And then I copy that pot. But I don't like taking pictures of individual pieces and then putting them, all 50 of them, up on a website and then selling them that way. That is not something that I like to do, or am good at. I'm not good at that. And
is that because of the time to take the photo? Everything is front loaded.
Yeah.
You'd rather backload it where you get the sale and then you're working the money off.
I would much rather
after the fact.
Yeah. And me, typically, as a I worked in the painting industry for a while, and it's very, very much a pay pay after the job is done well sort of industry, if you're smart, at least. Also, that's another tidbit: if you ever hire a contractor, don't pay full up front. That's dumb.
Yeah, the person working on the studio, I paid him for the materials up front, and that was it.
Yeah. Or pay half up front, so you don't lose all your money. So that's the only thing that kind of like goes against my philosophy. Usually I like to, but if I ever do a custom order, which is very rare, I definitely have them pay at the end. But with the flash sales, since they pay right at the beginning, I feel an extra load of responsibility to get that done and get it done quickly. And if I don't...
And meet their expectations,
Yeah, and if I don't meet those expectations, then I feel frustrated, and it's a bummer. What about you? What's your weakness?
I can relate to the taking photos. I usually do not get affected by the like insecurities with selling and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do post stuff online, I am a little insecure when things don't sell.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm able to roll it off a little bit more because when I do have things on in the last like maybe 3 months or so, stuff will sit, and I'm getting more okay with that.
Yeah.
I know it's good to have things online that people can see a gamut of my everyday stuff that they could buy at a show, but it also like some nicer stuff that is like the carved things. So I have a variety. It's good to have things like that online so people can buy it.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with them selling every now and then. But yeah, I still have some doubts when I post stuff that things are gonna sell. Cause I'm like when I do use social, I don't try to say, "Hey, come buy my stuff," very much at all.
Right.
I'm more about share, 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 and like give people tips and give people insights. And I don't know if most of my followers are following me because they want the tips and the insights, or they like watching my process and it's motivating to see me working and getting stuff done in the studio, or they like my glazes or colors or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it gets a little, it's tough. It's tough to do the online selling and the
I don't know if I could do it.
that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, I do have, there is a little bit of a, I guess, doubt and stuff when I'm teaching sometimes, because I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm just a moderator more so than like teaching them new things, and I'm just like a problem solver when they have questions,
Yeah.
more so than we are going to lead this task and like talk about this thing, and we're all going to do it, because that's just not the way that like my classes go. I mean, I felt that a little bit with the date night that I taught a couple weeks ago, where it was beginner people, and they had 2 hours to just learn a technique, and it was all on me to tell them
Yeah. It's hard.
like what was going to happen. And then you feel like, oh, all the results of what happens after that class, they're going to see those 10 pieces. And like that's a reflection of me as what I told them in those 2 hours,
Teaching
So-
has definitely put me in the humble boat, as far as like, it kicks you in your ass if you're lazy at all or whatever. I think that I definitely, like, when I started teaching, I was like, this is fine, it's okay, everything's fine, and then I started seeing everybody else's, like, there's a few of my, like, acquaintances that I look at their students, like, first pieces, and I'm like, are they a freaking superhero? Like, how did those pieces turn out like that? And because
Yeah.
I just don't have that experience with that, and it definitely kicks you right where it hurts. And so, but
Because it's totally a reflection. You're going to be that person that they say, that's the way I was taught.
right. And then
you don't want to be that person that they're like, that was not the right way. Or
Ye-
that's not true. Or
yeah.
whatever.
Oh, and also, like, I always fear that somebody's gonna go to a different studio, and they're just gonna like start doing something, and somebody's gonna be like, "Who the fuck taught you?" Like, that is not okay, And
Right.
but I definitely have like noticed that that's how I'm thinking. And so this year we kind of talked about it. This year I'm doing just beginners classes and then doing memberships, and the membership kind of like backs it off of me a little bit. It kind of puts it more on the people that want to be there and want to practice and want to learn. And I will 100% be there if they're like, Becca, like, I had two members in the last week that were like, Becca, we want to learn how to make plates. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I showed them, and we like worked it out, and they both made both people made sets of 10 plates.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, like,
I have somebody that wants a demo of a plate, and I make like one, and they make like one, and they're like, okay.
right. And so I think that's been the benefit to the member situation, just because it puts the pressure, an appropriate amount of pressure, on the student or on the member to take initiative for what they want to learn and how they want to learn it. And it kind of takes the pressure off of you to give them ideas, which is, I don't think it's being lazy, but I think that pottery is such a contact sport that, if you're not working at it consistently, there's no way you're going to get better. It's just, you have to, it's like anything. If you're going to learn how to bake a cake, you can't just bake one cake and be like, I'm a professional baker. Like, that's not how it works. You have to bake 5 billion cakes before you can say, hey,
Right.
I'm really good at
You
this.
can't just be like, okay, I can follow a recipe.
Yeah. And
I'm
so
great.
it's been interesting to see that the quality of pieces rise with the people that really take it seriously, and you know who.
Do you feel pressure to be that motivating force to push it on them that if they want to get better, you have to motivate them?
A
Or
little bit.
how do you get that across that you have to be self-motivated as a student to want to grow rather than I want to make one plate because somebody asked me to make a plate and then you make a plate rather than like I want to learn how to make a good plate.
Yeah,
Or
I
something like
think
that.
I think that I'm just really passive, and when somebody doesn't show interest, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, you do you, boo. Like, I don't.
You already paid me for whatever.
Yeah, and
so.
I never want to be that person where it's like, well, I'm just taking your money. And I've had talks with some people. It's like, well, do you want to be here? Like, I don't want to take your money if you're not going to show up, or if you know, if you're having an issue, or do you need a break, you know? And I think that the students always know that I'm there to help, you know, and the members. If somebody asks me a question, I'm more than willing to help them out. Uh, but if somebody doesn't show the initiative, I'm not going to come over and be like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Like, that's not my job. My job is to help you with your techniques, help you with your production or whatever you're doing, um, and I think that it's like slowly kind of like evolved into that. And I don't know, maybe it's just like an unwritten rule, I suppose. In the beginners class, though, I am very hands on. I'm like, you know, but you know, you can totally tell between the beginners classes. Like, there's, you know, one student that comes in and she comes in on the weekends and she's been like really learning and really practicing, and you can see it in the pieces that she's making, and she like really cares and she's really excited about it. And then you can see like I don't actually have any bad students right now. I don't know if I've had very many bad students, but and then you can see students like from the past where they were there to be there for that night and not a lot of progression happened, you know? I think that
Right.
I learned that from actually one student that I don't think that we just aren't on the same wavelength of time, and she really wanted to learn like so bad, and I really wanted to help her like so bad, and I felt like a failure when she wasn't getting it, and then I finally just like let go, and now she's like pumping out the stuff. Like, she is doing fantastic. And once
So you're saying that you thought she wanted a lot of hand holding, but she really just needed a little boost and like, here's how you do this, and then she needed to just heads down practice to learn versus okay.
Yeah. And yeah, so I don't know. It's person per person. And I will never and have never said that I'm a fantastic teacher. Like, there's far better teachers.
Yeah, I mean, the subject of learning pottery is not something that you can just like you're in a lecture hall and you tell them how to do something and they memorize it and it's always the same every single time.
Yeah.
It varies person to person and like their willingness to like adjust with when things happen, and like it's very physical, like their hand strength and their body position and their leverage and like all of that goes into it. So it's very individualized, I feel like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's so many, and I mean, there's so many good teachers. I feel like there's some teachers that you can go in and like figure it out. They're so good at teaching that once you leave that workshop, you're going to know how to do it, you know? I'm not that person. It's taken me a while to figure that out.
Did you feel a little bit of that when you were going to do your talk at Claycon West? Were you worried about the way you were going to come across and talk and the way you were going to instruct and, you know, the way your brain works and how you're going to present something? Is it going to come across in a certain way that they understand it? Or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Especially because I chose a topic. My ClayCon West discussion was about efficiency in throwing, specifically like in throwing, and I also know that I'm not the best potter. Okay. Like I do things very differently than some people, and so I was concerned when I went in. I was like, I don't know. I mean, like I'm not the best teacher for one. Everything I do is a little different than everybody else, too. And what if I'm just like a fake person in this room? Like what if and I know it's like ridiculous, but you go in there and you're like, I don't know if I'm qualified to be here.
That's what you call imposter syndrome.
That's the imposter syndrome. What's that?
Yeah, I wrote that in here. So it's where it's common in like coding a lot too. Like I'm a web developer, so
Yeah.
it's like among other people that do this skill set, you kind of have doubt and feeling like I don't really know this as well as these people think I do. So, if they were to actually like watch over my shoulder while I'm doing this thing, they would nitpick and find my flaws, and you feel like your flaws are more apparent to other people.
Mm.
And that's kind of like what goes into it. And you're exactly describing what imposter syndrome is for you. You're like, what if these people see me flop a pot while I'm throwing and like I'm not as good of a thrower, or people are like, hey, why don't you do it this way? And you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. That actually speeds it up. Or,
Right. I mean, yeah.
feeling like
I think that I went in and I was
know more than you do, but or you don't. Yeah, you're not confident. Yeah.
Definitely going into ClayCon West was hard just because I was the youngest. We were the youngest people there, Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we were literally the youngest people there. And, like, all the other presenters have been teachers for 10 years, 20 years. Like, they've been doing this for however many years. And going in and saying, like, I have something to offer here is so nerve-wracking around those type of people because they have a lot to offer, and
Yeah.
and like being like, okay, I'm good enough for this, and I know that there was a few other presenters that I'm sure felt like that, and everybody's workshop was amazing, but yeah, it's definitely hard to get over that. I don't really know how I got over it. I think that other Ryan, California Ryan, talked me through it, and he was like, "You're gonna be fine."
Yeah.
He was like, it'll be fine, Becca. Like, don't worry about it."
So and some of that's like applying for a show. Like when you apply, you're like, I don't feel like my stuff is good enough, but you just kind of like sign yourself up for it and just get enough confidence to say, you know what, I'm not going to overthink this. I'm not going to second guess and triple and quadruple guess myself about like, what if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? Like, just do it. See what happens. Like, you signed yourself up for this talk like how many months ago?
Oh my God, so many months ago.
Like, you committed to it. That's like, just like if you commit to like talking to somebody and interviewing with somebody or whatever, and you flake or you're like, oh, I just can't do this, or I'm just not in the mood. Some of that is like, you just got to do it.
Right.
It's not about waiting for that perfect moment of like, okay, I'm now in the perfect, headspace to do this thing. Sometimes you just got to do it and do it as best as you can in the moment.
Yeah.
And not worry about all those second guessing yourself and doubting yourself and all that kind of thing.
Totally. I think that if I hadn't had a little bit of confidence, and I would have never gotten picked up by Starbucks, and that was also a boost of confidence for me to be like, oh my gosh, the company of Starbucks wants my pottery. Like, I guess I can do this. I don't know if I would be I don't know if I would be an actual potter if that hadn't come along. That like little boost. But like through the whole thing, you're thinking, like, you literally have to fake yourself into it. You're like, I'm good enough. Like, I'm fine. And I remember when when it opened, the other potter that was there, she's amazing, Foxtail Pottery. And she's like, I think she's older than me. She's older than me, and she's really nice. But uh, her stuff was so good, and I had to be like, okay, this lady's been doing this for like way longer than me. You know, it's fine. My stuff doesn't look great, but I think that the thing that got me through that wasn't actually. I don't know if I would have gotten through that if I'd known a lot of potters at the time, but like the people at the store that the pots were selling it were like, these mugs are the shit. Like, like they're great for French press because the ridges hold, ridges catch the grinds or whatever. And like, I think that that's kind of what you have to hold on to is the people that are buying your pieces, that love your pieces, that, or the students of mine that say, Becca, you're a fantastic teacher. Like, I love this class. You have to hold on to those little nuggets of people that are like, I like you,
cheering you
you're
on,
good.
and like
Yeah,
think of those things.
You gotta take those cheerleaders and don't be like, no, you're not right. Like, I'm not even that great. You gotta take them and be like, thanks, man. Like, yeah, I can do this.
Right.
So, yeah.
But also, I guess be open to feedback and like take. I'm always open.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any feedback is bad feedback. Like I'm totally open with anything and everything. Tell me something's wrong or tell me if something could be improved, and I'll
Yeah.
I
love
do my best to
criticism.
address it and like appreciate the feedback.
Critiques are my
I'll
favorite
take all
thing
that.
ever. I love critiques.
Did you like being the receiver of the critique or
Receiver.
being the one telling the feedback? Receiver.
I like receiving. I don't give a lot of critiques because people aren't like me. If somebody asked me for a critique, like an actual critique, I would give them a very in-depth critique. But that hasn't happened in a while. I don't know if they want my opinions or not. So, yeah.
Some of it's like also with the feedback. I guess sometimes like if I'm in a show and I know there's some other potters or something, or there's just people around and they're saying like, "Hey, I just started selling," or "I'm thinking about this show. What do you think?" or "Have you done this?" or whatever. I'll give them feedback and then I'll be like, "You know what? Why don't you like come by and see my like." Or they're working on a home studio, and I'm like, why don't you come by and see my studio sometime? I'd love to have you over and chat about how I set it up or how I do this or how I do that or, what shows have worked, or I can give you a list of these and give you feedback on them. And, like, I'm totally open to giving people feedback about things that I've learned. But I guess some people are less likely to receive it because they feel like it's comparing or they're not ready to hear stuff because it'll make them feel down about their situation, because it feels like I'm like telling them good stuff about my situation maybe, or
the best, like, I think the most fun times and the most valuable times that I've had is hanging out with other potters in their studios, seeing what they're doing and like picking up on tips and tricks and stuff and talking about the struggles you have or what have you. And for sure, definitely, if you can find another potter or another person that's doing the same thing as you and go and hang out with them, I definitely recommend it.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely put in. Just because people like say no or they don't accept your request, I would say don't feel discouraged to say, well, they don't want to know, or like don't just stop asking because people, not the same person, but like feel encouraged to put it out to other people like, hey, I'd love for you to come by or whatever. Like, don't feel like you have to hole up and nobody wants to share and like talk with you.
Right.
Keep asking if you want that or you need that. Say, hey, I would love to talk to you about this or that, and then kind of have the back and forth. Don't feel like you can't ask them for some help too.
Yeah.
As well.
I also think it's important as a critiquer to not give out unsolicited advice. So maybe ask before if I ever have advice to give, I'm always like, hey, are you open to a suggestion? Are you open to some advice?
Ooh.
And be okay with them saying no. Because
I think I need to do that more.
I
don't know if I critique, but I'm open to just being like, hey, would you like to talk about blah, 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 or would you like to come see the studio or something like that? More so than, hey, how's it going with your studio? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just important to be like, hey, I've done this and I've learned a few things on the way. Are you open to some advice? I don't want to impose, but I am really excited to tell you something, but if you're not wanting to hear it, that's fine too.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't force it.
Nope. Nopers.
Nope. All right. I think that about wraps it up for us.
Yes. That was fun.
Yeah.
Cool. There's something in the background, so I apologize if that comes through on the recording. I think somebody's yelling.
It's all right. I can't hear it.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, that's it. Good night, Ryan.
Yeah, good night. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you could find the podcast at wheeltalkpodcast, or you could find myself at RD Ceramics. That's R's in Ryan, D's in Durban, Ceramics.
Or you can find me at 5 Lines Pottery Studio. That's the number 5. And don't forget, share this with your friends, like us on Instagram, and don't forget to write a review. It helps us an awful lot. Thanks.